So I know it's a Friday night. It's like I should try to get off early, try to take it easy, but I'm compelled. And so in James, this epistle from James, we have described for us the what in short form, what we would call in theology, God's impassivity. That is his that he is not that God is passionless. He doesn't suffer, right? And in the sense, it says every generous act of giving with every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. In fulfillment of his own purpose, he gave us birth by the word of truth. So what's at stake in God's impassibility for God to be impassible means that, in a sense, he's not bothered by human pleadings or emotions, that God the Father is completely other from humanity. My patristic professor described it this way. It's kind of like God doesn't pay, God isn't affected by please God, please God, please God, please God, right? It's like that's not how it works, right? It's like, well, all right then, or get away from me. God doesn't react with that sort of, the good news of God's impassibility is that God does not react with resentment about giving us good gifts. It's not like, well, all right, fine, because you bugged me and I really don't like you, but just to get rid of you, right? I mean, Jesus tells a parable about that. It's like, say, this is how humans are, like the woman who knocks at the door, and just to shut her up, the judge will decide her case in her favor. That's not how God is. That's the point of that parable. That's not how God is. God, in a sense, is always wanting to be the giver of good gifts. He is always there with an aspect of love. That's always that's God's setting, is love. And so, he doesn't give us blessings with resentment. Nor does he slap us away from him. He allows us to come into his presence, and sometimes the answer is no, but it's not no with prejudice, right? It's not hell no. I mean, it's simply no, my child. The no is always given in love, because God is a giver of good gifts, and he does not change. And the changelessness, the impassibility of God is good news, because we who change and are in a world full of change, and usually for the worse. And we have our good days and our bad days. And the thing is, when we have our bad days and when we stray from God and when we live life without God, we can come back to God. We can always come back. And it's the same God. It's not like he's sitting there being mad at us for the bad day. It's like, it is what it is. I mean, God is God. He's very, very big, and we're very, very small. And so that's the good news. It's good news that we can mess up, that we can sin, and God isn't always holding that, in a sense, God, of course we say, God doesn't forget in the sense that he like, oh, I don't have any memory of that ever happening. He's God. But in a sense, God forgets even more perfectly than human beings do, because human beings, when we've been wronged, in a sense, it changes us, doesn't it? I mean, it permanently alters the relationship. There's this reciprocity in human relationships, this give and take, and I affect you, you affect me, which then affects you, which you affect me. And but God is stable. He is unchanged. He is impassible. He is always a giver of gifts. He does not vary according to shadow or change. The day doesn't get long for God. God doesn't get tired of hearing our prayers. God doesn't fatigue. We don't irritate God when we go on and on. When we mess up time and again, it doesn't affect him. That's good news, because once again, he is always there to give good gifts. That's the character of the God who's revealed in Jesus. So with Jesus, it's the best of both worlds, because Jesus enters into our suffering, enters into our mortality, enters into our finitude, and so we know that God is in total solidarity with our weakness, with our vulnerability. God forgives that. He stands with us in the person of Jesus, but he doesn't he doesn't cut us off because of those things, that he's always open to us. So it's the good news of the theological doctrine of God's impassibility, that he does not change, that, and let me, the phrase from James, that the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. That God is God, God is good, God is love, and nothing you can do can change that. What great news! What great news. A reading from the Epistle to James. Do not be deceived, my beloved. Every generous act of giving, with every perfect gift, is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. In fulfillment of his own purpose, he gave us birth by the word of truth, so that we would become a kind of first fruits of his creatures. You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. For your anger does not produce God's righteousness. Therefore rid yourselves of all sordidness and rank growth of wickedness, and welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror. For they look at themselves and, on going away, immediately forget what they were like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. If any think they are religious, and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to care for orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.